Yep, it's official. What's cracking, everybody, and welcome back to Kraken R&R, where, yeah, even though we've known this was coming for quite some time, it still hurts. The Kraken have been officially eliminated from Stanley Cup playoff contention. Though I suppose at least, if it even matters anyway, they were already eliminated before this game against the Stars even started, with the Blues winning earlier in the day. But even if the Blues had lost this game, the Kraken losing this one to the Stars 5-1 the final would have also ended up eliminating them. And yeah, I do think this was a closer game in the end than the 5-1 final score really makes it look. Though at the same time, the other way, I don't think the Kraken played as good against the Stars, as the shot total of them outshooting the Stars 36-21 would make that look either. Really, either end of the ice. The Kraken sure do get quite a volume of shots with those 36, but at least half of them were straight into the chest of Ottinger. Meanwhile, back at the other end of the ice, the Kraken didn't make a lot of mistakes defensively, but when they did, Dallas was able to make them count. With all that being said, though, as we get into the game at 7:45, the Kraken do get off to a pretty good start. Actually, things get off to a good start for the Kraken even before the game gets started, as Chandler Stevenson does come back into the lineup and also steps back into the lineup in a fourth-line center role, which, as we get into next season, he'll be higher up in the lineup, and deservedly so, the way he's played the back half of the season. Polar opposite to how the first half of the season went for him, where he was one of, statistically, the worst forwards in the NHL, even outside of the contract that he has. But in this back half, he has really played, I think, generally well for the Kraken. Maybe not still on the defensive end as much, though has been better than the, downright unusable defense that he was giving the Kraken through the first half. But really in the forward end, he has been strong for them in this back half. Still, at the point where we are now in the season, we want to see some of those younger players get bigger roles and get more time on ice. And especially considering how the game previous against the Oilers went, I think that it was deserved that Wright got to keep his role as the second line center and played more time than he usually would with Stevenson in the lineup. So that was good to see. And yeah, if I did have one small thing to complain about, it would be that I would have liked to see Grubauer net for this game, if for no other reason than to just give Decord a little bit of a break. It would be kind of nice if Grubauer started at least 3 of the remaining 8 games of the season, so they're not just riding or continuing to ride Decord into the ground and completely wear him out if he's not already there. And the inconsistency of his play in net kind of points to maybe he has already gotten to that point where it's just been a very long season for him. Maybe that's really the only thing that I can think of, other than just the coaching staff trying to put out the best players they possibly can to save face a little bit with the record at the end of the season. But I don't know, maybe this is also a chance for the Kraken to give Decord that true experience of what it would be like to be a full-on starter for an entire season that's going to be playing that 60 plus games a year. Not that personally I think he really needs that extra experience, since he did play the 50 games last season, and this does now set a career high for him with this being his 51st game. Either way, yeah, personally I'd like to see Grubauer in for, ideally 4 of the next 8, but at least 3, so that Decord can ease into the offseason a little bit and hopefully not completely burn out going into next year. He will have the 3 months of offseason, but still, it would be nice to see at least a little bit more of a break, and honestly, maybe help his stats a little bit with how the team is playing in front of him at times in the game. But anyway, getting into the game itself, the Kraken do get off to a very good start even once the puck is dropped. They absolutely dominate the Stars through the first, really, 5 minutes of the game, and less than 2 minutes in, actually less than a minute and a half in, it pays off for them early, as McCann intercepts a puck at the blue line, or actually maybe it was just outside the blue line in the neutral zone. Anyway, a turnover, McCann gets that and just takes it right back into the offensive end. A power move towards the net, gets a shot on goal. Ottinger, a pretty good save with a good move from McCann, but it bounces out to the side, where Tolvanen, crossing the other way behind McCann, is able to whack the loose puck with the backhand towards the net. And I'm not sure if it was going to go in or not, and I'm not sure if this second touch was fully on purpose from Tolvanen, but he gets just the toe of his stick onto it with the forehand to make sure that it curls into the net to give the Kraken the 1-0 lead, and Tolvanen his 22nd of the season, trying to chase Schwartz back down for that team lead. And from there, the Kraken would just continue to get some grade A looks through the next few minutes of the game into their first power play, which doesn't necessarily go fantastic. They get a couple decent looks, but also give Dallas their best scoring chance of the first half of the first period on this power play shorthanded. Either way, the Kraken completely controlling the game through the first half of the first. But then as we get into the back half of the first, the Stars start to even things out and then turn them back in their favor. And it doesn't take them long at all to tie the game up. As into the offensive end, they get a wrap chance around the net, which isn't a full wrap around trying to get it around the post, but it is a Dallas player with the puck going around behind the net, getting up to low faceoff circle before getting a contested shot off. A fairly easy save for Decord to make, although he does have to come kind of out to the side of the crease. There was some opportunity there to shoot the puck from a tight angle without any kind of contest from any Kraken defenseman. By the time I think it is Larson that gets up to contest the shot, it does help that he's there, so the shot is an easy one for Decord to save, but it's still along the ice, rebounds off his pad right out into the middle of the slot, where the only player at all in the slot whatsoever is Jason Robertson, and he's able to have that puck go right onto his tape, and then has an empty net to put it into, which he doesn't miss, to tie the game for Dallas. Not long after which the Kraken would get their second power play of the game, but it goes absolutely nowhere whatsoever. The Kraken have a hard time even getting across the blue line with the puck, and the couple times that they do, Dallas is easily able to clear it back down the ice. At least one of those occasions, the Kraken actually clear it themselves with a missed pass. And I guess they don't allow any shorthanded chances on this power play, which does make it in some way better than a couple of the other ones they would have in the period. But yeah, it's just kind of a waste of 2 minutes. It does slow down some momentum that Dallas was getting right after their goal. But as we get back to 5-on-5 after this failed Kraken power play, Dallas picks that momentum right back up where they left off. And a couple good chances on net eventually lead to a second goal for Dallas. Well, I suppose to be more accurate, it leads to a power play for the Stars in the final couple minutes of the first, but that power play doesn't take long to cash in and get the Stars their second goal, making it 2-1. And it comes off, for really just the second time in the game, some passive defense from the Kraken, and yeah, this time they're a man down. But you can play a little bit more aggressive, even a man down on the kill, than the Kraken were here, where basically they're just letting Dallas pass it around, really not even the outside, as they're able to work it tighter and tighter towards the net. Eventually, a pass from the high slot to maybe even above the high slot, down to a bumper by the goal line, quickly leads to a pass up to just outside the slot. It gets through one Kraken defensive stick, which itself leads to a quick one-time shot from Hintz, perfectly placed into the far top corner over the blocker's shoulder of Decord. And Dallas has the power play goal after the Kraken demonstrated how not to play on a power play. The Stars make quick work of it, and we do go to the first intermission through the last minute or so of the period, with the Stars leading 2-1. And then the second period just kind of happens. It's not a terribly entertaining or certainly not eventful second period. The Kraken get one, maybe two good chances, and the Stars get a couple on a late power play. But as far as power play is concerned, really the most active skaters in this period, the most busy guys on the ice, were the four officials, specifically the two with orange bands, as there were plenty of penalties handed out early on into Kraken power play, which, after giving some shorthanded chances, they effectively kill off by having too many men on the ice. So that leads to a Dallas power play after a little bit of 4-on-4. The Kraken are able to kill off that pretty well. Then midway through the period, there's fight is being a little bit generous. It really is closer to what you could call just traded roughings, but they do call it 5 for fighting on both guys between, I think it was Bishop and Asiamont. Asiamont giving up quite a bit of size in that fight, and it showed as he gets thrown to the ice pretty quick, but not much of a fight, really. Just Asiamont gets outsized, and that's the end of that. And then we get to the late part of the period where Dallas gets back-to-back power plays. Fortunately, the Kraken do a good job of killing the first one off, and then Decord does a good job of killing the second one off, so we get to the third with still that same 2-1 score. And once again, it's a third period that goes very well for the Kraken. They play it well and, dominate things like shots on goal, possession time, and really everything except for the score on the scoreboard, which is the part that matters. And as far as that's concerned, it doesn't stay 2-1 very long. Dallas gets a power play almost immediately to start the period, and almost immediately in that power play, they're able to score again. And this one I don't think you can really blame the Kraken penalty kill too much for. They do a pretty good job of clogging up the passing lane that this puck ends up getting through, but it goes off at least tips off Decord stick, which then throws off the chance for a couple of other Kraken players to get a stick on it. That change in direction throws them off. It still might have gone off Larson on the way out to the far side. Either way, it ends up back on the tape of the intended target. He fires off the shot, and if we're being honest, this was a bit of a soft one that just gets through the armpit of Decord, and a power play goal again for the Stars that makes it 3-1. From there, again, the Kraken control the game for the most part, definitely get the majority of the shots on goal, have the puck for the majority of the time, do have another power play that is probably the worst 2 minutes of the period for the Kraken, but eventually as we get into the back half of the third, the Stars, against the flow of play, find the back of the Kraken net one more time. And this one certainly is much more on some just terrible defense from the Kraken and a bad transition back check as Dallas is able to get the puck out of their end of the ice, transition it back down the ice the other way, which they didn't get a ton of chances to do over the course of the third period. The Kraken spending a good amount of time in the offensive end. But on this occasion, the Kraken, I don't know if it's done being too far up into the play, trying to make something happen offensively, or Larson not respecting the speed of Wyatt Johnson, but either way, a pass to Wyatt Johnson that looks fairly harmless as they don't even have an odd man rush coming down the ice, but it catches Larson flat-footed. Johnson is able to just scoot right past Larson, make a power move up towards the net. He gets around, makes a nice move on Decord, and chips it over the pad into the net to give the Stars the 4-1 lead, which, well, the Kraken were not able to come back from. I mean, they weren't able to score a second time, so it's not like they were coming back from 2-1, but a few minutes later, they would pull Decord for the empty net. That would get hit, and that leads us to that 5-1 score. So once again, it was a game for the Kraken that got off to a pretty good start. They get that early lead, and then it mostly goes downhill from there. They do keep up that momentum early in the first, but the rest of the first, the back half of the first, is all Stars. The second, you can kind of write off. It's just 20 minutes that, I mean, the highlight pack is, I think, just 10 seconds long as far as the second period is concerned, and that tells you everything you need to know about it. And then again with the third, yeah, the Kraken do get the majority of shots by a fairly significant margin, spend most of the time with the puck, but they really don't get that many dangerous chances. A lot of the shots are just into the chest of Ottinger without anybody around the net to even follow up a rebound if there was one, or screen Ottinger to make his job a little bit harder, try to get a deflected shot to change the course of the puck before Ottinger can make the easy save. Just not really doing much to give any of those shots that they had a chance to actually end up in the net, unless Ottinger just falls off and plays a terrible third period, which he didn't. He was fantastic all night long. As far as the young guys are concerned, Shane Wright really kind of had a bit of a tough game. He had a few moments here and there where he almost makes something happen, but the puck just wouldn't settle on his stick. Just kind of not a great game for Wright. Not a terrible one either, but not his best. Beniers plays another almost 20 minutes. Wright did play 16 minutes, so he's still getting a decent chunk of ice time. Beniers another almost 20 minutes, and that line was up against the best line of the Stars, so the fact that they were pretty much a wash, they gave up almost nothing as far as expected goals against, but also didn't generate that much offense, that at least not much offense that ended up towards the Dallas net anyway. They spent a good amount of time in the offensive end, but just couldn't get a shot towards the net, and part of that was because I think they actually were looking for shots that might have a chance to score, and since nobody was getting to the net, they weren't able to find those. Newman, early on in the game, really the only parts of the first 5 minutes that went against the Kraken back the other way were a couple of mistakes that Newman did have, but generally he played a decent game. The lines were also kind of scrambly through, especially the second period. Newman was getting shifted out for Aziamont occasionally, who had spent a couple of shifts with Beniers and Kakko. Meanwhile, on the defensive end of things, Riker Evans, who has really been fighting it here lately, did have at least an alright game. The pair of Evans and Montour was probably the best defensive pair for the Kraken in this game. The other pairs, I mean, Larson and Dunn did kind of get exposed on that final goal for the Stars. But yeah, the only pair that really seemed to be generating a ton offensively was Montour and Evans, so a decent game from them. As far as the overall standings are concerned, yeah, even though this game, outside of the first 5 minutes, didn't really go Seattle's way, it does help them in that whole chase for the better pick, and especially chase for one of those top 4 spots in this draft. And it, with the win from the Flyers over the Sabres, does help them jump back over the Flyers into the 5th spot in the draft order. The Predators are still losing games, so it seems like they are probably going to lock up that 3rd spot in the draft order. It's just whether or not the Kraken can stay ahead of the Flyers and also maybe get ahead of the Sabres. With both of those teams playing each other, at least one of them was going to win, which is nice, but it also means one of them was going to lose. Ideally, it would have been nice if they could have at least gone to overtime, so they get 3 points between them. And I suppose if we're really going to nitpick, it would have been kind of nice if the team with the harder schedule the rest of the way in the Sabres had won that game, since the Flyers might still be able to pick up some wins, especially with the firing of Tortorella. It seems to have really unlocked at least Michkov, so yeah, they're probably going to at least pick up enough wins to stay ahead of the Kraken with the 2nd or 3rd hardest schedule the rest of the way that Seattle has. With that, though, let's finish out with the Kraken 3 stars. I already feel like I'm getting a little bit rambly, and I don't know how coherent a lot of this is. The game, like I said, started at 7:45 and then took a fairly long time to end. It was on the longer end of games, I feel like it was anyway. And then the press conferences afterward took quite a while, so I didn't even get home until almost 11:30, and as we're going right now, it's almost 1 a.m. So yeah, let's get this finished up here with the Kraken 3 stars. As always, brought to you by the patrons over on Patreon. If you do want to help decide Kraken 3 stars after every game, or if there are 3 stars, then you can support a little bit more than you already are by watching at this point by going to the link down below and supporting on Patreon as well. With the first star, and I don't think we're going to end up getting to 3, but with the first star, we'll go with the goal scorer in Eli Tolvanen, or Golvanen in this case, our 22nd sighting of Golvanen this season. And as far as that's concerned, 22 goals from Tolvanen is kind of what you'd like to see. Hopefully he can keep that up going into next season, and hopefully we can get a few more guys joining him and Schwartz in that 20-goal category, ideally earlier in the season than right at the end of it. But for Tolvanen, it's been a pretty good season, and he just continues that with being one of the few Kraken players that go to the net in those first few minutes, and it pays off for him with that goal. Second star... do we have a second star? I'll go with Jared McCann. McCann had a pretty good game in this one. Obviously sets up Tolvanen with that goal, with the play he makes to get the puck to the net in the first place. Even aside from that, that was probably the best line for the Kraken. Certainly the most dangerous line for the Kraken offensively. They gave up a little bit more the other way than the Meniers line did, but still McCann and that 2nd or 3rd line, depending on where you put them in the right line, they had a pretty good game. So yeah, I'll give McCann the 2nd star, and I don't think we're going to do a 3rd personally, but if you have a 3rd star, feel free to let me know down in the comment section below who your 3 stars would be if you'd have 3 stars, and just general thoughts on this game as we get another one against this same team on Monday. Until then, though, stay safe out there, be good to each other, God bless, and go Kraken.